A breath of fresh confidence in the economy. Consumer confidence figures take an unexpected jump, but the president still compares the economy to a winded runner, flying straight into big trouble. CBS News takes you aboard the airliner for the wild ride. Eye on America investigates tire failures on emergency vehicles. Sure enough, they're Firestones. And abandoned by the Sandman. Why can't Americans get enough sleep?
This is the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather reporting from CBS News headquarters in New York.
Good evening. If a dose of pure optimism is enough to get some better economic times rolling, American consumers seem ready, willing, and able to give it a go. Surprising the analysts, U.S. consumer confidence jumped this month, halting a 5-month slide. That got the bulls running on Wall Street. The Dow rose 260 points, its third big gain in a row, and even the deflated NASDAQ picked up 53. CBS's Wyatt Andrews has more on the American public's improving economic mood.
Finally, some good news. American consumer confidence, as measured by the respected Conference Board, spiked sharply upward in March after 5 straight months of decline. Simply put, never mind the losses on Wall Street and never mind all the layoffs. Most consumers, like these shoppers for electronics in New York, think the economy is sound.
I feel really good about the economy. I think that America is quite strong right now.
And more important, consumers still plan to spend.
They're looking for the latest and the greatest, the fastest and the smallest.
Consumers believe the economy is going to turn around. While Wall Street may be worried, Main Street is becoming more confident.
Wall Street rallied today on the hope that consumer confidence will equal recovery. But on Main Street, the confidence is real. Big-ticket consumer items like cars and houses are approaching record sales volumes. In Atlanta, construction workers are asking, what slowdown?
Our sales have stayed pretty steady. So far this year, we're on target with all our sales projections, so we're doing pretty well.
In Los Angeles, real estate buyers far outnumber the homes for sale.
Still a very active, viable market. There's still people out there that really want to buy.
Strong housing sales also reflect low interest rates, low unemployment, and again, high confidence.
Consumers will only buy new homes and take on larger mortgages if they are confident they're going to enjoy rising incomes in the future.
Still, the economy faces very tough hurdles this year, and the biggest is manufacturing. It's down overall because exports are weak. Economists are hoping that this increase in confidence will lead to even more spending. Consumer spending is the greatest single engine driving the economy, and now, after months on idle, there's a sign the engine has kicked into gear. Wyatt Andrews, CBS News, Washington.
Not all of today's business news was good. The Walt Disney Company said it is cutting 4,000 jobs. Disney Chairman Michael Eisner blamed the, and I quote, softening economic environment. President Bush is trying to distance himself from blame for economic problems and to deflect critics who say he isn't helping matters with repeated negative talk about it. He was talking about it again today in Michigan. White House correspondent John Roberts is there.
After months of wild gyrations on Wall Street, convulsions in consumer confidence, and massive corporate layoffs, President Bush had this message today: don't blame me.
I believe I must speak straight with the American people. The American economy began slowing last summer.
The major policy address was an attempt to beat back criticism that the president has been talking down the economy for 3 months to sell his tax cut.
The American economy is like a great athlete at the end of the first leg of a long race, somewhat winded, but fundamentally strong.
It was the furthest Mr. Bush has gone to reassure worried Americans, but not far enough to satisfy his critics.
Now that people are starting to blame him for talking down the economy and hurting consumer confidence, he's trying to have it both ways.
The president is walking a tricky line, says political scientist Kevin Phillips, exploiting the urgent need for short-term stimulus to sell a long-term plan that has none.
I don't think George Bush has a very good command of either economics or tax policy. And the way he's talking is actually drawing attention to that. it's not a wise way to do business.
Democrats, eager for a tax cut victory of their own, today attacked the Bush proposal as misleading. Their plan is to cut the lowest tax bracket from 15% to 10% and give taxpayers an instant rebate of $300 apiece.
Our plan will provide relief that is real, immediate, affordable, fair, and good for the economy.
Well, the Democratic tax cut cleverly includes elements of both the Bush plan and another Republican proposal. The president had no choice but to dismiss it out of hand today. Anything less than victory for his tax cut will be a public relations disaster. Dan?
John Roberts in Kalamazoo, Michigan. In the U.S. Senate, the McCain-Feingold campaign finance reform legislation survived some attempts to gut it today, but a poison pill may already be planted that could kill it off. Here's how. Opponents of the bill, including Senate Republican leader Trent Lott, helped pass a provision to ban issue-related advertising by profit and nonprofit groups in the last 60 days before an election. This is almost certain to be challenged as a violation of free speech. So opponents of McCain-Feingold will now try to add a provision to nullify the whole bill if any part of it is ruled unconstitutional by the courts. Senator McCain tells CBS News he has 10 Republican votes, but needs a lot of Democrats to prevent what he calls this sneaky, tricky poison pill. There were no negotiations today in the two-day-old pilot strike against Comair, the nation's second-largest regional airline. And CBS also has new confirmation tonight about a Comair flight that nearly crashed last week, including amateur video of that frightening flight in progress. CBS News transportation correspondent Bob Orr has it for you.
There's those clouds building up.
Alan Gornall and his wife were simply trying to capture the last moments of their vacation in the Bahamas when they videotaped their plane leaving Nassau. Gornall, a private pilot who lives in England, said everything about the takeoff was routine.
Relatively smooth and controlled, you know, there was nothing untoward about it at all.
But just over half an hour into the trip to Orlando, Comair Flight 5054 encountered some threatening weather.
There was something insidious looking about the clouds that we were flying into. And
the Gornalls and the 23 other passengers didn't know the plane's windshield and wings were picking up dangerous ice. Suddenly, the aircraft began rocking wildly.
The left wing just dipped down and we went into a violent roll. Not sure what my first thought was then, probably that the pilot was trying to take some evasive action.
Before Gornall could reach for his camera, things got worse.
I think then it rolls again to the left and then back to approximately level and then to the right. And at this point I'm thinking, this is going out of control here. It was a feeling of hopelessness really, because you thought, I'm going to die here and there's nothing I can do about it.
Somehow, Gornall managed to get to his camera in time to record these final seconds of the upset, just as the pilots managed to regain control. The captain never declared an emergency and downplayed the seriousness of the incident, even as the passengers sat in stunned silence.
The ice that we ended up with was a lot greater than the airplane could handle. We are diverting right now to Palm Beach.
But when the plane landed, there were no emergency crews waiting. No one, Gornall says, to help the passengers who had just survived the harrowing flight of Comair 5054. Bob Orr, CBS News, Washington.
One of two missing U.S. Air Force F-15s was found by search teams in northern Scotland today. The body of the pilot was found in the wreckage near a mountaintop in the Scottish Highlands. Search teams have not located the second F-15 or its pilot. The two supersonic fighters vanished yesterday during a training flight. Attorney General John Ashcroft was quoted by the Reuters news agency today as saying he may seek the death penalty for former FBI agent and accused spy Robert Hanssen. On the other end of this renewed spy contest, Russia expelled 4 more U.S. diplomats and unveiled a video purporting to show Russians meeting secretly with U.S. officials. But this video scores low on the believability scale, as CBS's national security correspondent David Martin shows you.
It begins like a classic espionage flick, a cryptic call from a payphone. It's Anatoly from Krasnoyarsk. I brought what I promised. According to Russian TV, that's Anatoly Popov, who served 12 years in prison for trying to hijack a plane and is now back in Moscow trying to sell secrets to Captain Robert Brannan, the U.S. naval attaché at the American Embassy. With surveillance cameras rolling, Popov meets in a restaurant with two other men identified as employees of the U.S. Embassy and offers them a map of a minefield of a river in Siberia. One of the Americans allegedly says, "I'll give you a little money," although you can't see his lips move because he's hidden behind Popov. That was the end of the Popov caper. According to Russian television, he turned himself in before he could be arrested. As the naval attaché in Moscow, Brannon reports to the Pentagon's Defense Intelligence Agency, so you can understand why the Russians would consider him a spy and keep him under surveillance. Russian television also played this audio tape. It said is Brannon talking with a man named Igor Sutyagin, who was on trial for espionage.
I wonder if you ever received the fax and the information that I tried to send you.
Yeah, that happened yesterday.
Good.
And the best was that envelope.
Well, all right. I'm glad some things worked, huh?
Yeah.
Although he is the star of this video, U.S. officials say Brannon is not one of the 4 Americans told to leave today. Maybe the Russians want to keep him around because he's so easy to keep track of. David Martin, CBS News, the Pentagon.
Still ahead on the CBS Evening News, more shredded firestones, this time on emergency vehicles. Eye on America has a hard news investigation. And later, sleepless in America, a dangerous epidemic of drowsiness. Electric bills are going up in California, way up. State regulators voted today for a hike of 42 to 46%, the largest ever. That's on top of a 9 to 15% increase approved in January and a 10% hike already scheduled for next year. Regulators say it's the only way to prevent more blackouts this summer. A CBS News investigation has turned up new evidence of possibly flawed Firestone tires. Up to now, the focus has been mostly on crashes involving Firestone-equipped Ford Explorers. But Eye on America investigator Cheryl Atkinson kept digging and uncovered worries about Firestones on vehicles that respond when we dial 911.
Last fall, Chief Joe Jackson was rushing to a brush fire in Pinyon Pine, Arizona, when his emergency call came to a screeching halt.
Just all of a sudden, this tremendous noise, pow, it was almost like something coming apart on the back of the truck. One of the rear tires on the driver's side had shredded on me.
Jackson didn't know it, but there were strikingly similar incidents in Sun City, Arizona, where Firestone tires peeled apart on an ambulance and a fire truck. But problems weren't just surfacing in Arizona. Twice an ambulance in South Carolina was stranded, once with a premature baby on board. Often the tires were practically brand new.
You can look at the tread wear, it wasn't on there very long. This tire lasted approximately 2-3 weeks.
But nobody was doing a systematic search for cases until Wayne Hollis decided to follow up on reports he'd heard about in Kansas.
I sent a memo out to all ambulance service directors to find out how widespread this problem was. And that's how we gathered the fact that there were 18 cases in Kansas.
Many involved Firestone Steel-Tex tires, the target of a federal safety probe that began last fall. But long before that, there were questions about Steel-Tex tires. 4 years ago, Arizona replaced them on 600 state vehicles, including some ambulances, citing tread separation. Now, at least 2 trade publications have issued national alerts advising rescuers to carefully check their Firestone tires. Editor of Fire Engineering, Bill Manning, says it's pure luck that there have been no serious injuries.
Firefighters are risking their lives every day. We don't need this kind of burden.
Firestone insists the tires are safe, saying there's been only 1 damage claim in 10 years involving a rescue vehicle. But there are questions about the system it uses to track problems. For example, Firestone recorded those 18 complaints in Kansas as one single complaint, then wrote it off entirely as unfounded. In fact, we found more than 20 tread separation complaints, but under Firestone's system, none of them count. In a statement today, Firestone said the majority of incidents were related to the severe use associated with emergency vehicles, and any tread separations resulted from these extreme conditions. And although Firestone doesn't track tires on ambulances and fire engines, the company says it has now begun work to do so. But many rescue squads like Pinyon Pine are switching tires, wary that Firestone might not own up to a problem.
We're going to change to another brand of tire.
Chief Jackson says his tiny department can barely afford the cost of replacing all their tires, but can't afford the risk of keeping them. In Washington, this is Cheryl Atkinson for Eye on America.
In a significant decision on affirmative action today, a Detroit federal judge ruled the University of Michigan Law School's admission standards are unconstitutional because they consider the race of applicants. This suit, similar to earlier ones in California and Texas, involved a white student who said she was denied admission because minorities got preferential treatment. An appeal of the Michigan case is likely. The Bush administration is calling on Palestinian leaders to take firmer action against terrorists, arresting them before they strike. The comments follow a new wave of deadly Mideast violence, as CBS's David Hawkins reports from Jerusalem.
A car bomb in the morning, a suicide bomber in the afternoon. The two explosions in Jerusalem today injured more than 30 Israelis, most of them not seriously. The terror attacks are increasing the pressure on Israel's Prime Minister Ariel Sharon to strike back hard against Palestinian violence. Israeli settlers are demanding revenge for the death of 10-month-old Shalhevet Pass. She was killed in her stroller yesterday by a Palestinian sniper in the West Bank town of Hebron. The baby's parents say they won't bury the child until the Israeli army seizes the Arab hillside where the shots were fired from. Today, some of the 400 settlers living in the tiny Jewish enclave, amidst more than 100,000 Palestinians, clashed with their own soldiers who tried to stop them from rampaging through the Arab neighborhood. And later, Israeli soldiers shot and killed an 11-year-old Palestinian boy during an exchange of gunfire on the outskirts of town. Israel's prime minister blamed Palestinian President Yasser Arafat for the upsurge in violence.
There is one man who is responsible for that, and that is Yasser Arafat, who have not instructed his forces to stop terror.
Everyone's waiting to see what Sharon will do. He's got to react, but without overreacting. And then there's the question of timing. A heavy-handed Israeli crackdown is unlikely while Arab leaders are meeting in Amman, Jordan. The UN sanctions against Iraq, not the Palestinian cause, are at the top of the summit agenda, and Israel would like to keep it that way. David Hawkins, CBS News, Jerusalem.
Britain may have pinpointed the origin of the foot and mouth epidemic devastating that country's rural economy. They traced it to swill fed to pigs on a farm in northern England, but it's not clear how the infection was introduced into the feed. British officials trying to stop the disease have destroyed hundreds of thousands of animals. CBS Next, America's dangerous sleep deprivation problem. It's enough to keep you up at night.
Tonight's Health Watch segment is sponsored by Glaxo Wellcome, the maker of Ceravent.
The U.S. Surgeon General reported today that women now account for almost 40% of smoking-related deaths, more than double the rate back in 1965. Lung cancer kills thousands more women each year than breast cancer. We leave you tonight with a wake-up call about Americans and sleep. We Americans aren't getting enough shut-eye, and that's a growing menace to health and safety, at work, on the road, and at home. CBS's Thalia Shuras has the eye-opening facts on tonight's CBS Health Watch.
Tracy Mathis spent last night at a sleep laboratory in Newark, New Jersey. Her brain waves and eye movements closely monitored to find out why she just can't close her eyes for more than 2 or 3 hours at a stretch.
I wish I could just sleep, one full night's sleep.
Mathis is one of millions of Americans who doesn't get enough sleep.
People poo-poo sleep, and if you sleep 7.5 hours per night, ooh, you're square. The thing is to stay up late and work long hours.
Sleep is a health, safety, and performance necessity.
The National Sleep Foundation wants to end this nightmare by promoting new public policy, spending less time on the job and more time under the covers.
We tend to sacrifice sleep and with the goal of working more.
As life gets more and more hectic, 63% of Americans do not get the recommended 8 hours of sleep. They are workaholics. 38% work more than 50 hours a week. Those with children sleep less than 7 hours a night. And 7 out of 10 adults say they have a problem getting to sleep and staying asleep.
Some tragedies don't have to happen.
People are so drowsy they're having accidents at work and on the road.
It's hard to overestimate the value of a good night's sleep.
Americans need to understand that sleep is not a luxury. Sleep is a necessity for good health and for quality of life.
There are a couple of other things that might keep you awake at night. The National Sleep Foundation says our sex lives and our social lives are also suffering. There's just not enough time. Thalia Ashuras, CBS News, Newark, New Jersey.
And yawn, that's part of our world tonight. Now, here's a preview of tonight's edition of 60 Minutes 2. Does he look like a spy to you? The Navy thought so and put him through 520 days of hell. But now he's free and talks about it with us. And think a tough coach like Phil Jackson has a feminine side? He says he does, and that it's part of his success. 60 Minutes 2, tonight at 9, 8 Central. For the CBS Evening News, Dan Rather reporting. See you again soon on 60 Minutes 2.
For news 24 hours a day, CBS.com on the internet and on our interactive partner, America Online, at keyword CBS News.
Escaping the rat race. Could his idea work for you? Tomorrow. Experience CBS News.